G'day guys, goeiedag, kia ora, my name is Wildkard. The greatest rivalry tour Game 2 is heading off to Cape Town, and everybody knows this is probably, in fact, this is more important than the first game. Both teams have plenty of room to improve, and both teams desperately wants to win this one for a number of different reasons, and let's have a look at some of the reasons right now. First of all, as every All Black fan still has not just one, multiple nightmares of the Springboks bouncing back in Game 2 in absolute devastating fashion, including record win last year at Wellington, and also let's not forget before the World Cup 2023, same thing happened. The Springboks bounced back in the second test against the All Blacks in that warm-up match with devastating consequences and scoreboard against the All Blacks, and this is something that I think it's not just a team problem. I think it's almost like a mental barrier for the All Blacks that at this point to actually breach through. And it's really important that they wanted to break through this barrier of theirs and not to get completely blown out of the water in the second game with some sort of mental, lapse, as they've been doing in the last number of years at this point against the Springboks. And for the Springboks, it's really interesting as well because every time the Springboks did this sort of blowout win, they had a different team. I often joke about the Springbok B team is the only team in the world that's better than the Springbok A team that's ranked higher in the world rankings. And it is true because every time they do this, not only the new strategy, the new style throws off the opposition because the opposition coming out thinking, okay, we're improving these parts of the field. And suddenly it's like the box kicking, it's been like, it's been like more it's been like kind of like, style back, and then there's more running rugby, and then man in the box is doing crossfield kicks, and suddenly you're not sure what you're playing against anymore. Is this still the Springbok team? And suddenly that catches you off guard, and the scoreboard gets blown out of the water. And that is both of these things are in play when these scoreboard when these results were delivered. And as a result, it's really interesting. Rassie Erasmus, unlike the previous times when the Springboks blown the All Blacks away, has basically announced the same setup from the first test. So is this still going to be a blowout? Is it going to be, just the same vibes but clamped a bit harder? So I don't know. This is so difficult to predict, right? On one hand, the All Blacks desperately want this to break that pattern, and then on the other hand, the Springboks has broken out of their own pattern to try to really, strong arm a win here in the second test. So who's going to come out on top? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But boy, I'm bloody excited. I am so excited to see what is going to happen in this game. Unfortunately for the Springboks, Handre Pollard, one big part of the vice that is, with the scrum, the line out, the more strategy, and the penalty goal kicking is having Handre Pollard on the field for the Springboks to deliver those Rugby World Cup, wins in the last, couple of World Cups now. Unfortunately, he's pulled out due to a hamstring problem, I think. It's a hamstring or calf problem. It's put out because of calf issue. So he's out, and whether or not the Springboks going to bring in Manie the Bok at 10 straight away, or they're going to put Sasha up from the bench and then put Manie the Bok on the bench is still yet to be determined. But I think they probably will put Manie the Bok at 10. In fact, that will make it a little bit more leaning more towards the, completely different style, like they did against the All Blacks in the previous year, right? And instead of having Sasha coming out to play the same game again in the first, or pretty much identical game again in the first test, they can actually spice things up a little bit with the Manie in the Block there. But then again, are they, why wasn't Manie in the Block selected in the first game? Maybe, who knows? There's a lot of, calculation going on behind the scenes we're not sure of, and there's a lot of things that the coaches can see that we cannot see. And the speculation is that most likely Sasha will start, but there could be Manie the Block. There's small chance Manie the Block could just come start and then ahead of Sasha. And obviously the strategy from last week from the Springboks is heavily criticized. Even the AI has learned that there was a tactical mistake, a costly tactical mistake. I think the AI is wrong. I've talked about this in multiple videos at this point. I think the Scrum at that time, they were looking at potentially sending off George Bauer to a yellow card, and the All Blacks already lost Ethan de Groot to a HIA, which means it will go to uncontested scrum, and then in the case of initiating uncontested scrum, the team will have to lose an extra player, which means the Springboks will play against 13 players with 1 yellow card. I don't think that's the wrong strategy, but the AI obviously and read some of the news reports and felt like that was the mistake, but I don't think that was the mistake. I think the mistake was the execution after the scrum, which is the most important, which is the issue that the Springboks did not deliver. They had the penalty advantage, right? And what they did, nothing. That's the problem. Not because they didn't take the penalty goals, because they did nothing when they had that penalty advantage. They couldn't score, and that's just little things that needs to be tidied up. Rasi did talk about there was stripping in the tackle. Again, you gotta work and adjust to that. Work harder to adjust to that sort of stripping style. Maybe have to go to the ground a little bit earlier. Right? When I was a kid, I was taught the ground is my friend. Right? You run to the tackle and you hug the ground. And then make sure that the ball gets recycled as quickly as possible. That's maybe that's what you have to do, and the little things like that, little adjustments like that, will become really, really important. But to be 100% clear, I would not be surprised if the Springboks stick to the exact same strategy and scrum again and again and again multiple times to try to beat, especially if they have the scrum advantage. If they recognize they have a strong scrum advantage, and they have loaded up the bench as well in the scrum in the form of Dutoy, so they will definitely just scrum as much as they can until they feel like they lost that momentum, lost that advantage, and we'll see how that's going to turn out in the rerun of the same strategy for the Springboks. For the All Blacks, they do have a couple of injuries as well. So they do have obviously Ethan de Groot and Josh Lord colliding heads in the first test, and both of them has to take this game off for the HIA protocol. So the All Blacks has made a couple of changes as a result of that, but pretty much the same team as they did in the first test with very little changes around. And this is what I was talking about. The fact that they brought back, I was surprised that he wasn't selected in the first test, to be honest. And I think Rasi did realize the mistake in that game when they lost scrum dominance in the second half, especially when Enche came off. And you can see that Rasi was desperately trying to get the dominance back by substituting the loose prop twice in the second half. So just so you know, in the first test, both Steenekamp came on early in the second half, and then about 20 minutes later, Jan Hendrik Wessels came on and replaced Steenekamp. 2 loose prop substitutions, and leaving Malcolm Marx playing the full 80 minutes. And I think he's going to do that again this game. And just to really squeeze that breakdown issue, that a little bit more, securing that the turnover a little bit better in the second test with some of the adjustments they made on the bench this week for the Springboks. But boy, this is such a massive game. The referee has been injured as well. Nika Ashumakeli was supposed to be the referee for the second test, and a good news I think for everyone that this is actually like very, very important game, and the best referee in the world is getting it, and that is Angus Gardner. Angus Gardner, who refereed in the Lions game. In the Lions game, and I think he's the best referee in the world. It was fast. It was very clear and concise. And he gives players opportunities to adjust their errors if that hasn't affected the game, and then just to let the game play on and not just keep blowing out penalties. I think that's really good. He's really, really concise. Best referee in the world right now, and he was penciled in to be in the third test. So is he going to do 2 tests in a row? I don't know, but he's definitely penciled in for third test, and then he's been moved forward to the second test once again. And apparently the pre-match referee meeting was once again cancelled by Rasi Rasmus. I saw something somewhere, but I couldn't find the article anymore. But and so again, there will be no referee discussions before the game. And then it will be Angus Gardner, doing his, I think sure he would do an outstanding job. Is Angus Gardner going to favor the New Zealand teams a little bit more? I don't think so, because Angus Gardner, even in the Super Rugby level, he's very strict. In fact, I think the scrum interpretation from Angus Gardner is one of the most strictest in Super Rugby. So if you want to get a penalty, you have to be really, really dominant, and then the wheel, like with the penalty against the Springboks in that crucial second half, leading to the turnover, that will be 100% called by Angus Gardner as well. And in fact, Angus Gardner really requires you to go forward very significantly before the wheel for you to get the scrum call. So you might even see the scrum call getting penalized if you deem that the full momentum isn't enough. Yeah, so that scrum will 100% be the minimum you need. It will be definitely be caught as well by Angus Gardner. So the scrum interpretation from Angus Gardner is really crucial here as well. And he often just let the scrum play. He doesn't really like to just, issue a penalty advantage unless it's really obvious. So you could get in a situation where if the scrum collapses and it's kind of 50-50, he's just going to tell you to use it. Yeah, so that could be come into play massively in this game. And watch out for that. Watch out for interpretation of Angus Gardner. I've done a lot of videos on Angus Gardner's scrum interpretation actually in Super Rugby. There was one time with Xavier Numia, who's on the bench for the All Blacks, got sent off for wheeling the scrum. Yeah, despite having the dominance, despite seemingly winning the strength game, but just because he's deemed to be pushing it illegally, actually got sent off by Angus Gardner. So that's something for both teams to consider as well in this matchup. Cape Town is going to be the place, and this has to be the first time I looked up the weather in South Africa where it's not sunny. It's actually going to be raining. What? I think the rain might play in the favor to the All Blacks because they do play in the rain a lot in New Zealand. And it never really, the wind and rain don't seem to be a problem for the All Blacks, especially the Hurricane players. They seem to thrive in that, and like the core backbone of the All Blacks are Hurricanes players. So yeah, we'll see. I mean, the weather, I think I might actually lean a little bit to the All Blacks here. But anyway, without further ado, let's talk about the men who are given the absolute privilege to play for their nations this weekend. I've scrapped the stats engine because there was too many mistakes last week. So we're just gonna go with no stats, boys. No stats. Too many complaints. Too many errors. The AI was just not smart enough. But anyway. Let's look about the setup this week. So first up, coming in number 1, Ox Enche, the best loose set prop in the world right now. Absolute devastation last week. Coming number 1, number 2, Malcolm Marks was outstanding in the breakdown and the lineouts as well. And Wildkard retains the number 3 jersey. Just want to double check. Yep, retains the number 3 jersey for the Springboks. For the All Blacks, George Bow gets caught up on the bench. He was struggling against Enche and Wildkard early in the game before the reserves came on. Cody Taylor comes in number 2, and Tyrell Lomax gets number 3 jersey. Yeah, this scrum might struggle once again. Against Enche and Wildkard. I think Enche will probably be the biggest problem in the game. But the All Blacks has talked about this, so they have been working on fixing this problem. And I do think that George Bower, after a almost 70-minute performance last week, he's definitely probably picked up a few things from the Springboks. The timing of the push and pull. Maybe they figured out some way to work that out. Especially with Angus Gardner, you could just bait them into an early push. He will definitely issue a short arm for you. Knowing Angus Gardner and how he likes to referee the scrum, it is so important. And if you're a Springbok fan, I really hope you don't get too upset by some of the calls Angus Gardner makes. Sometimes he does just let things go. So yeah, this could be the scrum advantage could be neutralized quite a little bit by the referee. Unfortunately, coming in number 4, Ibn Esbeth. Number 5, Ruan Nokia, unchanged from last week. Fabian Holland moves to the number 4 jersey. Tupu Vai moving from 6 to number 5 because Josh Lord had a HIA. And then Simon Parker gets caught up to the bench to the blindside flanker position. And that's the setup for the All Blacks. Sia Khaleesi has been determined okay to go at number 6 ahead of Paul de Villiers. And then in the open side flanker and the blindside flanker for the Springboks, Pieter-Steph du Toit at the captaincy has been handed back to Sia Khaleesi as well. Pieter-Steph du Toit will just be co-captain for this game. Luke Jacobson gets the open side jersey once again for the All Blacks. Has been outstanding, physical, and the most important and most impressive part for Luke Jacobson for me is that he's tidied up his discipline. He always starts the game a little bit too loose, and then he end up giving away silly penalties early on, and he's tidied that up. I'd like to see that continue with him. Coming number 8, man of match for me last week, Jasma Visa. The headbutt machine was absolutely outstanding. Adi Savia was outstanding as well for the All Blacks. the captain, always lead with inspiration and example, and be another huge matchup between the two. Coming number 9, Kobus Reinach has been caught in because Grant Williams is hurt from a niggle. They didn't say exactly why, maybe a foot leg injury or something. Coming number 9, he did get sent off immediately with the yellow card last week, so didn't really get to see much of him, but I know he's really sharp and fast around the park. Cameron Roygar was outstanding last week, coming number 9 for the All Blacks. Number 10, Handre Pollard is out. Definitely out. Potentially man in the block. I hope he's the man in the block because that'll be a different style than Sasha. But then Rasi, because of how many criticism that's been levied against Sasha this week, Rasi might just play him to start just to give him another chance to redeem himself at number 10 here. And again, this could be really shaky for the Springboks because last minute changes, especially in a position like this, will break up the consistency that the Springboks desperately looking to build on. Yeah. So Ruben Love comes in number 10 for the All Blacks. One thing with Ruben Love you might notice is that he's got Jordie Barrett and D-Mac holding his hand, so he's allowed a little bit of he's allowed a lot of breathing space out there, so he's not truly under too much pressure as you would expect in a superstar number 10 Dan Carter, all decision goes to him sort of thing. So Ruben Love is number 10, which is good. This is kind of the style the French plays. They have the number 9, make most of the decision. The 10 is kind of just there to be like almost like an extra inside center at times. Coming number 11, Ethan not a hooker for the Springboks. Been caught in for Cheslin Kobe, who's again has the same bit of a niggle from the report. And this is a big loss again for the Springboks because Kobe was by far the best guy on the high ball by a country mile. And without him, Ethan not a hooker is pretty decent as well, but not quite the same level. Not quite the same level as Cheslin. There's been a change here for the All Blacks. Leroy Carter has been moved up to number 11 jersey with George Morby at number 15. Moved to the bench. And this is something I talked about last week. I thought, Leroy Carter was number 23 on the bench. I thought it was just a bit of a waste to have Leroy Carter, an extra winger essentially on the bench, and just can only cover wing essentially. They said he could potentially cover number 9, but they've already got a number 9 on the bench, so you don't need 2 number 9 covers on the bench. So I thought that was a bit of a waste. And sure enough, Dave Rennie, maybe he hurt me. He's just went, okay, let's put the more versatile player on the bench, which is George Morby, who can cover the fullback and wing. And so they just moved Morby to the bench and gave more versatility on the bench. But I do think Morby is a better winger. So I don't know. Dave Rennie, what are you doing? You're confusing me. Okay. So anyway, it's done. And I do think this makes a bit more sense, actually. Having someone with more versatility on the bench than just having another winger on the bench. It is a bit of a waste for a bench spot, in my opinion. But anyway, moving on. We've got Damien Delunda coming in number 12. Jesse Crew comes back at number 13. Now, this is a combination we didn't see that much on the weekend because of the early injury to Curdy Alinsa. He had a knock. And as a result, the whole backline was shuffled around too early, and Rassi Rasmus has admitted that he made a mistake. He should have probably substituted the winger and kept the back, the center combination fixed instead of putting Esterhazen on at 12 and push I think Dan Linda to 13 and then Jesse Crew to 14. Instead of doing that, he should have just kept 12 and 13 in place and then substituted substituted like maybe Reinach on the wing or putting Reinach at 9 and put Grant Williams at wing. So instead of just he felt like he made a mistake in that setup, in that injury setup there. So and as a result, there was a bit of a disconnect in the back line, and as a result, we haven't seen much of this combination, and there could be a massive difference in this game as well. Jordie Barrett coming number 12, Quinn Tupai number 13 has been the go-to standards nowadays, and Jordie Barrett's the second playmaker. He will play more the kicking game. The 50-22 attempts was we did get 1 out of 2 Quinn Tupai on the week in the last week, but I will be expecting more out of Jordie Barrett. I do think that the All Blacks were under so much pressure from the rush defense. A lot of the kicking game wasn't able to be executed because of the lack of space. And I will see if that's going to continue to be a disrupting factor for the All Blacks there. Number 14, we've got Curdy Alinsa. He's okay. to be back here number 14. And then Will Jordan retains the number 14 jersey for the All Blacks. So Curdy Ellens has been moved from 11 to 14, and Chesson Kobe has been moved out. That's a bit of a shuffle around there. And finally, at number 15 jersey, the greatest Springbok in history of the Springboks, Damian Willemse. I had a bit of a quiet game last week, maybe because of the backline being shuffled around quite a bit too much. Also, maybe the way the kicking game was being played didn't quite play into his style. But again, the All Blacks will once again, play a style that's least likely to suit Damian Willemse. And then we've got Damian McKenzie, who's being absolute tip-top form right now for the All Blacks, coming in at number 15 jersey. On the bench, we've got De Jong Fourie, and this is so interesting for the Springboks. So De Jong Fourie is a hooker. He can throw the ball. When he was a youngster, and he's currently a specialist open side flanker. So because the fact that they, Rassie Erasmus realized that he could play Malcolm Marx for full 80 minutes, I think De Jong Fourie will come on as number 8, as an extra loose forward, unless Malcolm Marx gets hurt or something. De Jong Fourie will come in at number 8, and then he will not throw the line out. And I think that's the idea here with De Jong Fourie at number 16. Just an extra pressure at the breakdown, and extra forward pressure in the middle of the spine of the All Blacks attack. And then we got Gerhas Dinnekamp coming in number 17 once again. And then Thomas du Toit has been caught in at number 18. I do think Botham was underwhelming a little bit last week. I'm sorry, and du Toit desperately was needed for this game. So this will be, again, continuing that potential dominance in the scrummaging. And again, the referee might just neutralize that. We'll have to wait and see. Asafo Aomoa comes in number 16, retains that spot for the All Blacks. Xavier Numir, number 17, is called up to the team because of injury to De Groot. And Fletcher Newell retains the number 18 jersey in a tight head position. Fletcher Newell, in my opinion, is probably better than Lomax. But I think that they trust the experience to start a game for the All Blacks, and just keep it consistent as well from the game one. But Fletcher Newell has been outstanding, I think, especially off the bench last week in the second half. But we'll have to see if the scrum is actually going to be another issue once again. It's so 50-50 right now. Ludiacha comes back at number 19. We haven't seen him. Did we see him I think we saw him in July. So he's back here. Patrick Tuipulotu gets caught in at number 19 to the obviously injury George Schlort, and Simon Parker gets moved up from the bench. Coming number 20, we've got Peter Larkai, who was 19 jersey last week. Basically, same. Andrew Esterhuizen, my favorite player of the Springbok team right now, comes in number 20. Cameron Hanekom, number 21. Manko van Staden has get dropped off. Carl Preston retains number 21 for the All Blacks. Morne van der Berg comes in number 22. He is replacing obviously Goran Williams' injury with what's his name? With Cobus Reiner, obviously, getting up to the starting position. Anton Leonard Brown, number 22, once again, extra center. Sasha Feinberg Ngomezulu comes in at number 23. And finally, Leroy Carter, George Morby coming on 23 with Leroy Carter moving up to the start. So a swap around there with the two. Sasha will probably be starting, probably on the bench. Not sure. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, with all this, it's clear emphasis once again for the Springboks to assert that forward dominance and the scrummaging in particular, and potentially, in the breakdown with extra loose forwards on the field. Esterhuizen, Rassi did say that he really wished he had used him as a loose forward instead of a center last week. I thought it was decent as center. He scored a try, but I think he scored the only try. And then but it'll be interesting to see. Obviously, there were some strategies that the Springboks wanted to deploy that wasn't able to execute, with Esterhuizen being put at 12. So yeah, boy, this is such a difficult game. Initially I thought the Springboks was going to win this one with Handre Pollard. Now that Pollard is out, I don't know. But then the scrum dominance is going to be a massive, another big step forward for the Springboks, and I do see that the All Blacks might struggle once again with it this week. But with Angus Gardner, I know how reluctant he is at giving away scrum penalties. So if the All Blacks has to do a little bit better for last week, and they will walk away with minimal damage. So that aspect of the game could be just completely neutralized. So I'm the two chat. Initially I have the Springboks going to win this one, but I'm going to change my because Angus Gardner's the referee and because Handre Pollard's put out. I'm actually going to lean towards the All Blacks a little bit this one. I think the All Blacks win by 1 point. 22 points to 21. Yeah, I'm sorry. I think that's what I'm going to have to go with. But yeah, anyway, let me know your thoughts, guys. Like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys for the reviews on the weekend. Very exciting, regardless. I'm sorry, Springbok fans. I think Angus Gardner, the scrum interpretation might be an issue for you guys. But yeah, anyway, thank you for watching. Cheers.